As the squad files into the training yard, their synchronized steps and composed expressions reflect the pride of elite warriors, selected from star systems far and wide. The barren yard stands silent. Anticipation thick in the air as they prepare to meet a trainer who would appreciate their formidable reputations. But when their eyes fall on the towering figure waiting for them, a human with a stern, weathered face and eyes like chips of flint, the silence shatters, replaced by barely concealed disappointment. Murmurs ripple through the group, their previous confidence wavering. A human? Really? Lorne, the tall, serpentine alien with scales that catch the light, mutters incredulously. His words are low, but the disbelief is evident. Arca's pointed ears twitch, her greenish skin shifting to a slightly deeper hue of frustration. They must be joking. We've trained with champions, with warlords, and now this. Kreth, the stone-skinned colossus, grunts in disapproval, his deep voice resonating like a low growl. They call this preparation for the best? It's an insult. Zira, delicate wings quivering with the slightest motion, lets out a scoff, eyes darting between her squadmates. We've survived trials that shattered stronger beings. What could this human possibly teach us? Vrith, smaller with 4 agile arms, tilts his head, perceptive eyes narrowing in skepticism. He doesn't look weak, but still, this isn't what any of us expected. Crix, horns glinting in the sunlight, shakes his head with a heavy sigh. Is this the standard now? Have they forgotten who we are? Darren, the blue-scaled warrior, remains silent, but the dismay is written across his face. Even his usually bright scales seem dimmer, reflecting the collective discontent. Their conversation, heavy with disappointment, comes to an abrupt halt as the human, Sergeant Callahan, if the patch on his uniform is correct, steps forward. The moment he opens his mouth, his guttural, grating voice slices through their expectations like a blade. Well, what a sorry bunch of maggots I've got here, he sneers, his voice echoing off the walls. The human, Sergeant Callahan, judging by the stitched-on name on his uniform, scans them up and down with an expression that falls somewhere between pity and disgust. His gaze settles on each of them, one by one, as if he's taking mental notes of every potential weakness. Without a beat, his voice booms even louder, slicing through the squad's composure. The only correct answer to anything I say is, "Sir! Yes, sir!" Am I clear? There's a moment of hesitation. The squad members exchange uncertain glances unused to this kind of blunt demand. Finally, in a loud, uneven chorus, they respond, some voices more reluctant than others. "Sir, yes, sir!" Callahan's mouth twists into a smirk, as though even their obedience disappoints him. He shakes his head, barking, "I don't know which scrap heap they dragged you out of, but let's be clear, you're the lowest of the low." His gaze sweeps over them again, his lips curling in disgust. The squad members are caught off guard. Arca, a lithe, spindly alien with a shimmering greenish hue and delicately pointed ears, mutters under her breath, "Does he even know who we are?" Apparently, he does, and he has no respect for it. Callahan's gaze snaps to her instantly. "You think I care about your fancy titles, Twig? You're just another maggot here. Until you prove otherwise, you're as useless as a screen door on a starship." One of the other aliens, clearly perplexed, leans toward his squadmate and whispers, "What is a maggot?" Kreth, the large stone-skinned alien, grumbles in response. It's a soft-bodied, legless grub, the larva of a dipterous insect. "And here I thought I was above such childish insults," he muses, his pride stung. As the word sinks in, the squad members look at each other, expressions shifting from confusion to fury. To be called such a lowly creature, by a human no less, was beyond anything they had ever tolerated. Arca, her shimmering greenish hue brightening with indignation, gasped, "Did he just call us maggots? I've trained my whole life for this. How can he say that?" The shock coursed through her, the word cutting deeper than she thought possible. Lorne, his scales shimmering with disbelief, shook his head slowly. "This has to be a mistake. He's calling us maggots? Does he even know who he's talking to?" Each word dripped with incredulity, as if the very idea was too absurd to accept. Before they can dwell on it, Callahan begins barking orders. The first drill is simple, a speed test across the rough, uneven terrain of the training yard. They expect him to watch in silence, maybe even offer pointers, but instead, every misstep, every pause is met with a new insult. "Move faster, rockhead!" he shouts at Kreth, who stumbles slightly over a boulder. I've seen glaciers move faster. Kreth clenches his fists, but keeps moving. His people are known for their strength and resilience. Never has he been openly humiliated like this. The drills intensify, moving to obstacles where they're forced to crawl through mud, leap across trenches, and haul heavy sacks up steep inclines. Every hesitation brings another wave of scorn from Callahan. "You call that crawling?" he shouts at Zira, a fragile winged creature whose delicate appendages are caked in mud. "I've seen ants with more guts than you." Zira, covered in mud but fiercely proud, flared her wings. "Ants? I've worked too hard to be treated like this. He has no idea what we've sacrificed to be here." Her voice trembled with frustration, the humiliation visible. Hours pass, and the alien recruits are breathless, mud-covered and seething. They've been challenged before, but not in this way. They expected a human instructor might be unimpressive. Instead, this one's contempt is unrelenting, his insults cutting straight into their pride and their strength. By the end of the day, they're beyond exhausted, standing in a tense line as Callahan walks in front of them, still unimpressed. "You think you're tough?" he says, his voice low and menacing. "I've had trainees from backwater planets who showed more spine than this." They stare back at him, barely able to contain their fury. But for now, they hold it in, too drained to respond. In their cultures, this would be a challenge, a call to prove one's worth, to defeat the challenger and establish dominance. But for now, they have no choice but to endure. Days drag on, each one beginning with Callahan's taunting voice and ending with aching muscles and bruised pride. Nothing seems to be good enough for their drill sergeant. Every effort they make is met with more biting insults. Despite their impressive backgrounds, each recruit is singled out and picked apart. During a hand-to-hand combat drill, Callahan zones in on Arca, who's quick and agile but slender in build. As she strikes with a well-practiced technique, Callahan just laughs. "Hey, noodle arms," he shouts. "You call that a punch? I've seen flower petals hit harder." Arca's face flushes with frustration. She's a decorated warrior on her home planet, praised for her agility and skill. But here her reputation means nothing. Gritting her teeth, she strikes harder, but Callahan only smirks. In another drill, Lorne, a tall, scaled alien with a fluid, serpentine build, takes a misstep while sparring. Callahan's sneer is instant. "Watch it, clumsy lizard. At this rate, you'll trip over your own tail before you can even make it off the battlefield." Lorne hisses in anger, the scales along his back flaring in shades of iridescent green and red, a clear sign of his growing agitation. That night, the squad gathers in the dimly lit barracks, nursing their bruised egos. The atmosphere is thick with frustration. They sit in a circle, each one feeling the sting of Callahan's relentless disdain. "This is outrageous," Lorne growls, his scales still flashing with irritation. "Who does he think he is, calling us maggots? I could break him in half without a second thought." Arca nods, her eyes still smouldering with anger. "Back home, I'd never let anyone speak to me that way. I'm respected, skilled, yet here he treats me like a clumsy novice." The squad murmurs in agreement, each of them nursing wounded pride. But then Vrith, a smaller alien with 4 nimble arms and perceptive eyes, speaks up. "Maybe he's testing us," he suggests hesitantly, his voice softer. "Seeing how we handle the pressure?" There's a pause, followed by scoffs and muttered disbelief. Crix, a bulky alien with powerful horns, shakes his head. "Testing us? What, by insulting our every move? That's not how training works. At least not back home." Vrith shrugs, but his words linger. They sit in thoughtful silence, wondering if perhaps there is some twisted purpose behind Callahan's approach. Though they loathe to admit it, they each feel a shift happening. The insults that once distracted them now fuel them. Slowly they find themselves pushing harder, focusing more, as if each jab at their pride has become a motivator. They're getting faster, learning to ignore distractions, and moving with a confidence they hadn't realized was growing. But Callahan's taunts don't let up. During an endurance run the next day, he singles out Crix, who struggles with the extra weight he's been assigned. Callahan strides beside him, his tone mocking. "Oh, come on, Butterball. I've seen cargo ships with more speed than you." Crix clenches his jaw, the insult stinging. His legs burn from exertion, his lungs heaving. He's ready to snap back, to show Callahan just how powerful he can be. But Callahan's gaze is unwavering, his expression daring him to respond. Crix glares back, suppressing his rage, and pushes forward, refusing to give Callahan the satisfaction of seeing him quit. The constant jabs wear on them, but there's something more now, too, a quiet resolve building under their irritation. Each of them silently vows to prove Callahan wrong, to show him they're not just maggots, but the best of their kind. However, as the drills continue, the pressure builds until it's too much for one recruit. Darren, a sturdy but mild-mannered alien with bright blue scales, finally erupts. "You're not worthy of being our teacher," he shouts, his voice raw with frustration. The squad goes silent, a mixture of shock and concern crossing their faces. "Darren, don't!" Lorne warns, but Darren doesn't listen. Fueled by rage, he lunges toward Callahan, the very embodiment of defiance. "I'll show you." Before Darren can reach him, Callahan's calm demeanor doesn't waver. In a single practiced swoop, he sidesteps and sweeps Darren's legs out from under him, sending the recruit crashing to the ground. The impact echoes across the training yard, leaving the squad gasping. Callahan leans down, looking Darren in the eyes. "Is this what you call bravery? Pathetic," he sneers, his voice dripping with contempt. "You're just another oversized baby throwing a tantrum. Did you really think you could take me? You've got more guts than brains, and it's going to get you killed out there." Darren struggles to push himself up, but Callahan presses a boot down on his shoulder, holding him firmly. "Get up, recruit. You think this is a game? You're not even worth my time to teach. You should be thankful I didn't make you face a real opponent. But let me tell you something. This squad is now just as weak as you are. You've shamed every single one of them." The squad watches in horror, realizing how serious the situation has become. The fear of disciplinary action hangs heavy in the air. "Darren, get up!" Arca urges, her voice a mix of concern and disbelief. But Darren stays down, his face flushed with anger and embarrassment. The reality of their circumstances hits home. This isn't just training. It's a harsh lesson in discipline and control. As the squad exchanges nervous glances, they understand that the stakes are higher than they ever imagined. The fear of court-martial looms over them, a shame that could tarnish their home worlds. And yet, beneath their frustration, a sense of unity begins to form. They may be treated like maggots, but together they can rise above. Callahan straightens up, surveying the squad with a satisfied smirk. "You think that outburst means anything? No discipline, no respect. You're all responsible for his failure. Now, get in the mud and crawl. The rest of the day is yours to reflect on your shortcomings." The squad exchanges nervous glances, frustration boiling within them. "This is so unfair," Lorne mutters under his breath, glaring at Darren as they prepare to follow Callahan's orders. "Still better than court-martial, I guess. Thanks a lot, Darren," Zyra hisses, sarcastically rolling her eyes. "Now we're all stuck in this mess." As the grueling days stretch into weeks, the squad begins to notice something peculiar about Callahan's relentless verbal assault. The insults, though harsh and unrelenting, seem specifically crafted to target their individual weaknesses. Each remark stings, but it forces them to confront the areas they struggle with most. There's an underlying precision to Callahan's taunts, as if every sneer, every cutting word is designed to drag their flaws into the open. One day, Arca, exhausted and fuming from being called noodle arms one too many times, finally channels her frustration into a focused, explosive punch during hand-to-hand combat drills. She expects more criticism, but instead, Callahan's eyes gleam with something almost like pride. "There it is. Took you long enough to stop fighting like a ballet dancer." The unexpected acknowledgement, however small, fills her with a flicker of pride, mingling uncomfortably with her resentment. She realizes reluctantly that his words are pushing her to reach further, hit harder. She isn't the only one. One by one, her squad mates start finding their limits and pushing past them, driven by the desire to prove Callahan wrong. The turning point comes during an intense combat simulation, one that's more complex and challenging than anything they've trained for. Callahan oversees the exercise, barking orders and hurling insults as they struggle to complete their objectives. This time, though, something changes in the squad's response. Instead of bristling, they channel his scorn into raw determination. "Is that the best you've got?" Callahan yells as Lorne hesitates behind a barricade. "Didn't realize I was training a bunch of cowards." The words hit harder than any physical blow. But instead of backing down, Lorne feels a surge of defiance. With a steely resolve, he charges forward, ducking obstacles and neutralizing targets with newfound precision, no longer letting fear or hesitation hold him back. By the end of the exercise, the squad is spent, covered in sweat and grime, but victorious. Callahan approaches, and for once his sneer softens to something closer to approval. "Not bad, maggots," he mutters, almost grudgingly. "For the first time, you almost look like soldiers out there." Despite themselves, each of them feels a swell of pride. In that moment, they understand that his methods, brutal as they are, have forced them to uncover strengths they didn't know they possessed. The insults still sting, but now they see his strategy. He's torn them down, stripped away their arrogance and weaknesses, only to rebuild them into something stronger. As they stand there, bruised but proud, Arca meets Callahan's gaze and offers him a small, silent nod of respect. To her surprise, he gives her a brief, knowing smirk. No words are needed. Respect has been earned in the most unforgiving way, through grit, endurance, and the toughest training of their lives. As the dust settles from the combat simulation, the squad gathers, panting and bruised, but filled with a newfound sense of accomplishment. Days later, the moment they've all been training for arrives, the final exam. The intensity is palpable as they put their skills to the test one last time. The pressure mounts, but they've learned to harness it, transforming the weight of Callahan's relentless insults into fuel for their performance. When the results are announced, a wave of disbelief washes over them. Their platoon scores the highest among all the other squads, a testament to their hard work and tenacity. The cheers erupt around them, but amidst the celebration, Callahan's voice cuts through the noise. "Listen up," he barks, his expression serious. The squad falls silent, their hearts racing as they await his words. "You think this is just about today? You think I pushed you because I enjoy seeing you struggle? Let me make this clear." He pauses, scanning their faces, his eyes piercing. "The galaxy is a harsh place. It doesn't care about your feelings. It will cull the weak without hesitation. The enemy will not wait for you to catch your breath or figure out what to do next. You needed to be ready for that reality." He continues, his tone unwavering and authoritative. "I punished you all because of Darren's outburst. You see, a single soldier's mistake can cost us all our lives. In the field, there's no room for error, no room for weakness. If one of you falters, the rest of you pay the price. I needed you to understand that." A heavy silence falls over the squad as they absorb his words. The respect they felt for Callahan deepens, shifting from grudging acceptance to genuine admiration. They realize that every insult, every brutal training session was aimed at forging them into a cohesive unit capable of surviving the challenges that lay ahead. As they reflect on their journey, a new understanding blooms within them. The humans, especially Callahan, are far more wise and stronger than they had ever imagined. It's not just physical prowess, it's the depth of experience, the understanding of what it takes to survive and thrive in a universe fraught with danger. They now see that Callahan's relentless methods were born from a place of knowledge and a desire to prepare them for the harsh truths of war. Arca steps forward, her voice steady. "We get it now, Sergeant. Thank you for pushing us." One by one, her squad mates echo her sentiment, their voices ringing with newfound camaraderie. Callahan nods, a rare flicker of pride crossing his features. "Good," he replies, a hint of warmth creeping into his voice. "Now, remember this lesson as you move forward. You're not just soldiers, you're a team, and together you'll face whatever the galaxy throws at you. Don't ever forget that." With a collective sense of accomplishment and unity, the squad stands tall, knowing they've not only passed the exam but have also forged an unbreakable bond under Callahan's demanding guidance. In that moment, they understand the gravity of his training, and respect for him solidifies, setting the foundation for their future challenges in the unforgiving galaxy. They now see the value in the wisdom of the humans beside them, realizing that their strength lies not only in their physical capabilities, but in their shared experiences and the lessons learned through adversity.